So let's go to chapter 3, that is research methodology. If you allow me, I'll get there in a second. Keep on revisiting the work, but this time around, consult also other books so that you don't forget what you did in chapter 1, in chapter 2, in chapter 3, and all that, and so that it becomes easy to flow. So chapter 3, there we are. So chapter 3 is research methodology. Research methodology. Can we start by saying what it is? I've already defined it. And whenever you think of research methodology, you can think in terms of the two ones I mentioned earlier. That is a blueprint or roadmap. Okay. So it's basically a precise description and justification of the steps that you will use to solve a problem. Key words there: description, but description is not enough if you don't include in it justification. Why are you choosing this method and not the other? So justification is the most important bit in this chapter. Otherwise, you can use any methodology, but you need to be sure that it is the most suitable for your study, specific study. So the question of why you are choosing one method and not the other should be very clear. So we have basically two considerations when we think of research philosophy. And research philosophy is just one of the aspects in research methodology. Especially at PhD level, the research philosophy is very, very critical. It might not be as critical for masters, but for PhD level, that is something very, very critical. And the two considerations, philosophical considerations, are ontological consideration and epistemological consideration. So starting with ontological rather, here we are asking ourselves about the reality of knowledge. The reality of knowledge. Is reality dependent of the researcher, or is it dependent on the researcher? When I talk of dependent, we are talking of, is the researcher influencing the study in any way, or the reality or the knowledge to be acquired in any way? So if the researcher is independent, then we say that the reality is, or that kind of a study is objective. So objectivist approach is where the reality is independent. This is mostly the case in quantitative studies, quantitative. But where the researcher is having some influence on the outcome of the study, then we say we are using subjectivist approach. For example, if you are doing an interview, that is in the case of studies that are qualitative, you are doing an interview. Definitely you are interacting with participants to the extent that you are interfering with perhaps how they would respond. Behavior changes when it's observed. Have you gone to an interview and you are not yourself? You don't behave the way you would behave ordinarily. So that is what we call a subjectivist approach. So subjectivist approach implies that participants or social actors, when you see social actors, you're talking of the participants. They are the instruments, right, of data collection. So the participants themselves are the instruments. I know we will argue that in the case of interview, we have interview guide, but actually, because the interview guide will not give you any data, it's the participants who will, then we look at them as the instruments. But for objectivist approach, we just need an external instrument for that independence. And in this case, we are talking of questionnaires. So that is about ontological consideration. When it comes now to epistemological consideration, here we are talking of how do we know what we know? Or how is knowledge acquired, understood, and shared to other scholars and to other recipients of the knowledge that we have acquired? In this case, we have two categories. The study can be guided by positivism or interpretivism. Positivism goes with studies that are quantitative, because we are getting knowledge which is independent of us as researchers, and also independent of the respondents or participants. But interpretivism, we look at how the participants are interpreting, or we interpret the data from the participants' point of view. So, in terms of positivism, the knowledge comes from existing theories. From existing theories. And that is why we are saying it's more suited for quantitative study, because if you remember from our chapter 2, we had theories that were guiding us. But when it comes, now that one we call it deductive approach. When it comes to interpretivism, knowledge is acquired or obtained by interpreting participants' actions, and this is what we call inductive approach. Inductive approach means we don't start with any theory. As a matter of fact, it is after we've analyzed the results that we come up with the theory. This is the case in ground theories and such like theories. Therefore, this works best for qualitative studies. So that's the main difference. Generally speaking, study can be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method or approach. Mixed is where you are using both. You are including both quantitative and qualitative for one main purpose. You want to enrich the data that you collect from the participants. So there are gaps that you'll find in quantitative data collection, and there are gaps you'll find if you are doing the qualitative alone. So now you integrate the two. So that is what we call mixed method or approach. Okay. So now the philosophy that you are going to use is dependent on the objectives of the study, the purpose of the study, the theories, and we'll be looking at these methods that you are going to use to collect data and the researcher's experience. The last one sounds naive, but you see, you may want to use mixed methods so that you sound like you are really a sorted scholar. But if you don't have experience in that, then you might not successfully use it. Though there is remedy for that. What do? You just go and read, wind about the mixed methods. That way now you have the experience, but you have to read fast. Now, some of these things we've talked about, positivism, interpretivism, and pragmatism. These are the philosophies that correspond to quantitative study, qualitative study, and mixed method study respectively. So if you are doing a quantitative study, we say that you are using a positivism approach. If you are doing qualitative, then you are using interpretivism approach. And finally, if you're using mixed methods, then you go by pragmatism, right? So that's how you know which is which, right? Now, research philosophy, methodology has quite a number of components.
Sorry, Dr. Could you go back to the slide you just, yes.
Right, that or this one?
No, the other one.
Right.
Actually,
so
the one before, please.
Yes, all right. Yeah, feel free to interject at whatever the point, or you can be writing down any questions, then we'll be stopping at some points to respond. Can we move on?
Thank you.
Welcome. So those are the three approaches, depending on whether you are doing a quantitative, qualitative, or mixed study. You can now use positivism, interpretivism, or pragmatism approaches. It's that simple. But let me mention that if you are to do the pragmatism, that is the mixed methods, being guided that you have to include all the aspects of a quantitative study, be it data analysis or data collection, everything. And then you include all what is supposed to be there in a qualitative study. So you shouldn't be shallow. I've seen some people using mixed methods that doesn't really look like mixed method. It looks like maybe quantitative study with some small element of qualitative aspect, or the other way around. But what is undevised of late, and many people shy away from it, is mixed method. Why do people shy from it? Because it's quite rigorous, it's quite engaging. It will take much more time, but it will give the best results. All right, so now we move to research design. And we are saying this is a roadmap. You are telling us, you are giving us stuff like how will the data be collected, measured, analyzed, and all that. That's the research design. And when we talk of research design, there are many. Some are used almost interchangeably, but it's good to read each of them to understand them before you choose the one you want to settle on. We have research designs like experimental, observation, correlational, descriptive, explanatory, exploratory, cross-cultural, and many others. Some are more popular than others. For example, if a study is quantitative, then you realize that descriptive and explanatory are very essential. But then therein, you'll find things to do with correlational analysis when we are doing the data analysis and all that. For qualitative study, we go by exploratory. Basically, we do quantitative where data exists. A lot is known about the study we want to do. And so we'll be like describing something that exists. But exploratory or qualitative is where very little is known. And so we'll be coming up with induction. We'll be coming up with like theories, new things that didn't exist. In both cases, however, you must have something new that you are bringing to the world of knowledge. Okay. Now, others like Sekaran will classify research design depending on other criteria, like according to purpose of the study, the purpose. Do you want to describe what is already known, or you want to bring in or to venture into something that is very new? If that's the purpose, to describe what exists, then it's explanatory or descriptive. But if it's something that is not much known, an area where we know very little, so we are exploring. Allow me to use the word explore, deriving from exploratory, so that you are able to remember. Then in that case, that's qualitative, and you use exploratory approach. Now, the other criteria would be type of investigation. If it's causal, that is cause and effect, then we call it causal investigation. But if it's not cause and effect, I'll explain further. If it's just relationship, then we call it correlational. You see, the examples I've given here are straightforward. A cause-effect relationship would mean, like, as an example, does smoking cause cancer? That would mean cancer is not caused by anything else other than smoking. So you should be very keen and careful when you're doing something like causal. This is where you do the actual experiments in the laboratory to establish that X causes Y and nothing else causes Y other than X. But for correlational, and that is where most studies come in, you simply want to establish relationship, whether it exists or not. Like, are smoking and cancer related? That doesn't now exclude other variables. We're only saying, among other possibilities, smoking and cancer are related. That's correlation. Extent of researcher interference with the normal environment. Here we will have causal. If we are affecting, well, if we are manipulating the settings, like in the case of an interview where people may not behave the normal way, or correlational if there is minimal interference. Like if you're just giving questionnaires for the participants to fill, you're not affecting them. They may not be afraid that somebody is observing them, and therefore it's just correlation. Then the last one is the criteria standard setting. If it's causal, we are saying it's contrived. We will control it, or rather we use it as it is. But non-contrived settings, again, it's for correlational, because we are not affecting the setup at all. So remember, causal is where you are like doing a real experiment in the actual settings. So it is important, as I've said, to make sure that you understand all the research designs before you settle on any one. And as Machishi says, et al., most scholars, even at postgraduate level, they pick the wrong research design. And there's nothing as bad as picking the wrong path to your destination. In leadership, we say it is important that you confirm that the lander is leaning on the right wall. Otherwise, you'll still get to the top of the wall, only to realize that you are on the wrong destination or wall. Okay. So that's very, very important. Make sure you get it right from the word go. Don't be in a hurry to pick a research methodology or research design that much later you realize it was not to give you the right data. And therefore you'll be analyzing the wrong data. Can you get right results from wrong data? Now, means versus the end. Means versus the end. So basically that is it. And in our example that we've been using, we have independent variable as, was it ethical? No, not ethical, authentic leadership. And the dependent as financial misappropriation. And since we are sort of describing what is already known about those variables, then we are justified to use descriptive research design. Just an example. All right. I don't know whether there is any question up to that point. Before we go to population, you realize I'm moving slowly so that Bishop will not be disadvantaged if there are no notes.
Dr. I have a question.
Yes, Pastor Shasha.
Thank you very much, Dr. Because your presentation is quite clear, meticulous, and there is a lot we are learning from it. Let me ask something about the mixed methods. If you use a mixed method approach, it seems like in every aspect, one will be doing or will be taking two channels. Let me ask what you do, especially when you're talking of hypotheses and research questions. If you are taking a research method approach, will you have research questions and hypotheses, or you only take one of them? And again, when you come to the research design, for example, should you now take both descriptive and exploratory research designs, because it is a mixed method, or you just pick one of them? Thank you.
Thank you, Shasha. Let me respond to that first. Yeah, that's very, I'm sure you have already perhaps engaged in this, the way you are framing the questions, because that's something you cannot escape. Now, in mixed methods, if you are using mixed methods, you have no option than to use both research questions and hypotheses. But what is the purpose? You see, when you use the hypothesis, you'll be able to get the quantitative data. But then you need to answer the research question using the qualitative steps. Maybe you give interviews to get more data. But now when you are doing the interviews, you are already being guided, and I'm now getting to the second question you asked. You are being guided by the results you got from the quantitative data collection. So you've given questionnaires, you've collected data, but then there are areas where you feel, oh, there are gaps here. I need to get more data using interviews, and I'll interview just these few people. Of course, that must also be guided by a criteria. How do you select whom to interview and whom not to? So the purpose is you are collecting qualitative data to enrich the quantitative data you got. Therefore, yes, you have to use a research question and the hypothesis. But now, how do you phrase the research design? Now, that is where you combine maybe descriptive and then sequential. We call it sequential, where you use one and then you come and use another one. So you are allowed to use both. But as you read from the research design books, you'll see there are different terms given to those combinations, like sequential. If you are doing one, then you come to the other one. Or if you are doing simultaneously, it's a different one, and all that. So yes, the answer to your question is you need to have both. Fortunately, if you read books like Cresswell rather, the books by Cresswell, describes all those approaches in mixed methods. Hope you are okay, Bishop, Pastor Shasha.
I'm okay. Thank you very much for the response. Now clear.
All right. We can move on, and you could be chatting the questions also down there. Dr. Munya will be noting down, and then we can respond to them. Let's now go to the next thing, that is population. Very little to mention about population. These are all the individuals that we'll be getting data from, but then they must be of the same characteristics. You know, for example, if we are doing a research on the 47 counties and we are looking at employees, then we are talking of all the employees in all the 47 counties. Is that practical? No. So we go to the next level, and that is now where we take a sample. Because unless you are doing like the national census that we do for all the counties, counting the individuals, in an academic study, you don't have all that time. So you may have to do what we call a cross-sectional study, where you are restricted by time. So in that case, you will have to decide which counties do you want to do the research to collect data. And even in those counties, you may not engage every employee. So again, you need to come up with a smaller sample, but those samples must be guided by a scientific method. You need to look at what is agreeable from previous scholars and studies. For Mugenda and Mugenda, they talk of 10 to 30% formula. Remember, nothing is wrong as long as you justify what you are doing, but your justification should be based on existing empirical studies that have been done or agreeable research sources. Right. Now, for you to get the sample that you want, you need to use a certain sampling method. The very common ones, you'll find them in books. Like we have random sampling, it's very, very common. But before we go to random sampling, let me mention that if the population is not too big, now big is relative again, but if it's, let's say, just 100 or 200, don't go doing more sampling because you are reducing an already small number. So in such case where the number is initially small for the entire population, you use census. But if the number is too big, then that's when now you come to sampling. Now, random sampling, again, has many other dimensions. We have simple random sampling because it's random. You are randomly picking the numbers, or systematic random sampling, where you pick maybe every fifth item. You count 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth you pick, then the 10th, like that. It's systematic. Or stratified random sampling, where you first divide the population into samples, or strata rather, into stratas. If, for example, it's an organization where you have different levels, senior management level, middle management, and the lower management level. Those are 3 strata, and you may want to have representation from every of those 3 levels. So you use stratified random sampling. So you might have started with random sampling, and then you come to stratified, or you start with stratified, and then in every strata, you do random sampling again, maybe like the systematic one, whichever. So that's how you do the sampling, as long as you are able to justify. Remember the others that we've not mentioned here, like purposive sampling for qualitative studies and many others. Sequential sampling methods is like what my brother was asking about. Sequential, meaning you are doing one followed by another, quantitative one followed by a qualitative one, like that. All right. Types of data, nothing much to talk about it. We are talking of primary and secondary data. Those are mostly the ones that you look at. Primary data, you are collecting data from the participants themselves, real time perhaps. But secondary, it means you are looking at documents that exist. The best practice is to use both. So when you are doing the secondary one, then it means in case when you are collecting the data from the participants, there was some bias or disclosure. And then now when you are doing the secondary one, you're able to read documents that exist. They could be physical or they could be over the web. But if it's over the web, please be sure to ascertain that the data is reliable. You can go to the official websites of the companies that you want to collect data from and all that. All right, or you can physically visit the organizations if it's possible, if it's viable. Data collection methods, yes, Bishop?
I wanted to know,
Yes?
where does probability and non-probability sampling fall?
Now, the issues of probability and non-probability, it's a question of, do you want the standard to be replicated or generalizable or not? As long as you want the standard to be generalizable, or the results to be generalizable, then you have to go for the probability one. Non-probability means mostly not the scientific one that we do because it's not replicatable. And the ones we've looked at, you realize that they are all at the probability category. So that is where the two come in, Bishop. But why would in a scientific research one do non-probability? Maybe Dr. Munyao, if you have anything to add on that. Or Bishop, what did you have in mind?
I was just thinking, I mean, to get clarity of mind. So in essence, any research that can be replicable, then we are saying that is probability. You need to engage probability, but something that cannot be replicated in any form of setting, then that becomes non-probability. Yes,
because not all studies are done for the sake of being replicated elsewhere. But in our case, we are encouraged to do scientific studies, and therefore we go for probability. And remember, we've said this, and that's good that Bishop is bringing this in this point. At this point, we said you must seek to understand everything in general first before you narrow down to the specific. So that even if you are cornered, you are asked, why did you go for probability category than the non-probability one? You can give the simple answer for the sake of making the results obtained generalizable to other populations. Thank you for that. All right, we move on to data collection methods and procedures. This is a question of explaining the steps that you'll follow in collecting the data. So basically that is it. Do you want to drop the questionnaires and you pick later? Or do you want to wait for them to fill in the questionnaires? You need to explain that. Don't assume that, let me see how it goes in the real field. No. Okay. This helps you to be prepared so that you don't start a journey that you will not finish. And then you'll need to explain the data collection instruments that you are going to be using. Mostly for quantitative data, it's questionnaires. For qualitative data, you could use all the other options like the interviews, among others. When you talk of questionnaire, you need to explain how is it going to be, divided. And we've guided you here on how you do that, because the sections are supposed to be guided by the variables as well as the indicators. Right. So you take the questionnaire and you start with maybe demographic section where you are giving us the age, or you want to collect the age, the years, the experience that the participants have, the level of education, all that is demographic. And then now you come to the variables. You start with the independent variable and the questions that you want to include in that section. Then you go to the variable, the sub variables, or the indicators. Again, which questions will you be asking? And this is guided directly by the conceptual framework. Because remember, in the conceptual framework, you have all those indicators for independent, mediating, and dependent variable. Before you really say that your instrument is perfect, well, there's nothing like perfect, you need to do two things: pretesting the tool or the instrument and piloting the instrument. I'm well aware that many others will use them interchangeably, but I love bringing in the distinction between pretesting and piloting, although many will use them interchangeably, meaning the same thing. Pretesting is at the developmental level of the instrument. So before you even go testing with the pilot group, as you design the instrument, let's say the questionnaire or the interview guide for qualitative study, you may involve like experts, say you are supervisor, say the experts in the area that you are doing the study. Dr. Munyao will tell you that I threw my questionnaire to him when I was doing my study, to just have a look at it. There are some very simple mistakes that you might have made in the questionnaire and you cannot see them yourself, but someone else will see them. That is pretesting. But piloting is, now we feel that we've done our questionnaire right, we've tried to include everything, and it's ready to now go and collect data, but not the very final data. It's at the still at the testing phase. So you will pick a sample that you will not include in the actual data collection finally, and you pilot that questionnaire using that sample. For example, if you are doing the study in all the 47 counties, then it means in one county, you'll do the piloting. Then when you're doing the actual research, the collection of data, you will use the 46 and exclude the one that you used for piloting. And Robert proposes that you do 5 to 6 respondents for piloting. That is very, very subjective on the size of the participants, or the number of participants, the size of the sample. Right, so remember we said everything is about justifying. So if you say you are using 5 to 6, tell us where you got that one. Aye, Roberts recommends that. Okay. Now this is very, very critical, reliability and validity. If your instrument doesn't adhere to these two concepts, reliability and validity, then the data you are coming up with is null and void. And they are different. Basically, both measure the goodness of the data being collected by the instrument. We start with validity. Validity is Is the instrument measuring what it purports to measure? I mean, if you want to measure temperature, you must use thermometer. Otherwise, if you are using a rainfall gauge to measure temperature, then that instrument is not valid. And then the data we get is not valid. There are all these forms of validity. I've just mentioned 3. Construct validity. Construct validity, you want to check whether the instrument is measuring the variables that you intend to measure. So you must be guided by the theoretical framework, because the theories give us the tenet, and the tenet describes what that theory is meant to measure. So check to see that construct validity is done. How do you do that? Again, you can seek the assistance of professionals and experts in the area. But more importantly, just go back to your variables, go back to your conceptual framework, theoretical framework, to confirm that you've measured everything you needed to measure. Then content validity is about, have you included all the indicators of the variables? When we look at your questionnaire, are all the indicators captured in that questionnaire? Sometimes we include the general variables, independent, dependent, and the mediating, but we forget the indicators of each of those. Now, criterion-related validity, here we are looking at the items being mentioned. Are they different from each other? So that you are not measuring the same thing. If you find that you have 2 items that are measuring the same thing, then that is redundancy. And we need to delete one. We need to remove one. So that's criterion-related validity. Generally, you might find things to do with the internal and external validity in general. When you see internal validity, we are checking whether the measurement being taken is the relationship between the variables. Are we measuring the variables themselves, that relationship? Because finally, you have a question to answer. Do we have a relationship between the 2 variables or 3? And if yes, is it positive or negative? And what's the magnitude? Is it strong or weak? But external validity is basically about generalizability of the results. So back to Bishop Paul concern. If we use non-probability, and now we are responding to the question of external validity, you see now we'll be in trouble here. That's where we connect everything with each other, so that finally the entire document makes sense or carries weight. How do you know whether the results are generalizable? That's about the sample size. Was it okay? Was it well done? And so on and so forth. For reliability, for reliability, we are testing whether, or we are concerned about, are the results that we are getting from this instrument consistent? Every time we use the same instrument, will we get the same results? If that one instrument is giving different results at different times, then it's not reliable. We can't rely on it. And the most commonly used measure is the Cronbach alpha coefficient. And in the near future, we'll be looking at analysis using, say, SPSS and all that, and things to do with Cronbach alpha. When you input your data, you are able to get the output, including the value of this alpha coefficient. So you are able to tell. But you don't want to use an instrument that when you collect the data finally, the alpha value, the reliability coefficient value, will be unacceptable. Because it means you have to go back, you have to design the instrument and go back to data collection, collect data, and you analyze to see to it that Cronbach alpha is okay. So when you are now testing the instrument before the actual data collection, you have an opportunity using the SPSS to see whether there are some items you need to eliminate so that the Cronbach alpha value is acceptable. And here et al. Recommends a value of 0.7 or more as the threshold. So if it's less than that, then it means the reliability is not acceptable. Different others might have that value varying a little bit. So whenever you are citing it, tell us who recommends that. Again, justification. Oh, any questions so far? Today I'm very slow so that we all take enough notes and we understand. The purpose is to understand more than anything else. Remember, you can get this stuff from books, but really getting the actual interpretation of what something means, that's where the challenge is. I cannot see any hand up or unmuted mic, so we move on. We're getting to
excuse me, Dr. Kariuki. So I hear you say that you can check the Cronbach alpha value for your instrument, say a questionnaire, before you go to the field.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's what you are saying, Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, when you are doing the piloting, remember the piloting, not pre-testing. When you're doing the piloting,
yeah.
You can use that data, feed it in SPSS, and you see what you are getting.
Okay.
You may risk, to go and do the actual data collection, and then you'll be telling us what the alpha is. But supposing it's not acceptable, what do you do at that level? And another thing is, when you are deferring your proposal, you've not collected the actual data. What will you tell us about your the reliability of your instrument? Because you need to tell us, you need to see that part. So like for me, what I did is I used the results I got from piloting and checked on the reliability of my instruments. If you are using someone else's instrument, and of course you must get permission, then you don't have to calculate the alpha afresh. But then remember, some of them, to get permission, you pay. So your pocket might also be a factor in this case. Thank you, Elizabeth. Operationalization of variables. Many scholars skip this part, but it's important, especially for the PhD students. This is important. What is operationalization? It is simply refers to that process of defining the theoretical concepts or framing them in a way that empirical data can be collected on those concepts. Because initially you realize that the theoretical concepts are abstract. So how do you collect data from an abstract concept? You need to define it in a way that it's empirically measurable. And if you allow me, because this part might sound abstract, the part itself, I may take just a second to show you how you do that part. So if you allow me, I can use my own document to show you how you do that part. So just a minute, I get to that page so that's easy to share. I got it, so I can go back to sharing. So you are still there? Are we there?
We are here. We are here.
Yes, we are.
You know, it's already night. You might sleep, and I'm left in the field alone.
No. Daktari, we
We are
are
not.
Kukolido.
All right. Especially my friend who was doing defense on, is it Domitiana, who was doing defense on publication? I would want to know whether she's still around.
I'm very much around, Daktari.
That's encouraging. All right. So this is what we are talking about, operationalization of variables. Okay. This is how you do it. You will have this kind of a table. You go to your variables and we are talking of their indicators too. Like in my case, I had idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration. These are the indicators for transformational leadership. Then the second column, I'll put what type of the variable is it? Is it independent? Is it dependent or mediating? Then now, this is where you operationalize, variable operationalization. Look at this, the process by which an institution's leadership creates an emotional attachment with the staff so as to influence the staff to adopt values and goals of the organization. So I have not picked the general definition by scholars out there. That one was done in the literature review part. But here, I'm trying to think in terms of when I'm now measuring this, what will I be asking? Whatever the questions I'll be asking, they should be those questions that will give me data that is concrete. So we have the indicators here for idealized influence, confidence, emotional attachment, blah, 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 blah. Then, very important is in the questionnaire, which questions will be measuring this, right? So therefore, I know for sure my questionnaire is helping me to measure what I wanted to measure. So whether you think of criterion validity and all that, it's captured here. If it's content, I can see everything is captured, and so on and so forth. So that is how you do it in that table. And you can see I've included also the mediating variable, psychological empowerment, and the indicators there. I've also done for dependent variable staff retention and the indicators, as well as the questions and the sections in the questionnaire that are being used to measure the different values. That's how you do that part of operationalization of variables. Very, very interesting. So I don't have to add anything else on that part. And data analysis, how many minutes do you have? Oh, a few minutes. Data analysis, when you see data analysis, you know we are almost finished. Data analysis, you need to tell us how you are going to analyze the data, whether quantitative or qualitative. And back to Pastor Shasha, here you will be telling us now both, because it's not quantitative or qualitative, it's both. You need to tell us, how will you analyze the quantitative data? How will you analyze the qualitative data if you are using mixed methods, right? There are key data analysis here that we would expect. Descriptive. Descriptive is one of the very important analysis that you'll do. Here you are describing. How do you describe? You can draw pie charts, you can draw distribution, frequency, histograms, all this. And the importance of this analysis is for replication, because we want to, if you are to replicate the data somewhere else or the study somewhere else, we will need to use the same characteristics or the participants of the same characteristics. So if it's the age, the years, I mean, rather the experience and all that, we can only say we are replicating data if the characteristics are the same. Otherwise, if it's a different setup or the same, then it might be a different study, not a replication of the study that you're talking about. And also interpretation of other statistical measures. When we are interpreting the data, we'll also need to check on the descriptive analysis. And I believe Dr. Munyao, when doing chapter 4 and 5, will really be looking at this kind of statistics, the descriptive statistics. Even the results you find, you'll analyze those results based on the descriptive part of the results that you got. The other one is, of course, that has those measures, central tendency, things to do with the mean, mode, median, those like such things, standard deviations, and frequency of distribution. Inferential statistics now goes into the finer details of the variables. Correlational analysis, is the relationship positive, negative, strong, weak? Regression analysis, that's where we now relate, we come up with those equations that tell us how much of this independent variable influences this dependent variable or defines this dependent variable, or how much of this does it change in the other variable. Those are regression analysis. And sorry, here we are. For the data to be valid, when you are analyzing, before you analyze the data, you must confirm that these assumptions are not violated. We call them diagnostic tests. There are assumptions you make, like we want to assume that the data that we are getting is normally distributed. Otherwise, if the data is not normally distributed, then the influential results that we are getting might not be valid. So these tests, diagnostic tests, include a normality test, that is to ascertain the normal distribution of the data. Homoscedasticity and heteroscedasticity are, one is the opposite of the other. Homoscedasticity, you are checking whether that the variance or variation, when you take the dependent variable and check what it's the change it's having on the dependent variable. For different instances, are the variances the same? If they are equal, then we have homoscedasticity, which is acceptable or desired. Heteroscedasticity means the variances are unequal. That if we take this part or these results of transformational leadership, and we check the effect that has on staff retention, and then we take some other results for the same variable, independent variable, and we look at the corresponding change in the dependent variable. If they are not equal, then there is heteroscedasticity, which is not desired. And therefore, the results we get, the influential results we get, are not valid. In other words, these diagnostic tests should not be violated. And if they are violated, we need to get a way of remedying that. Multicollinearity is where we look at, you see the independent variable has indicators. And those indicators are also independent variables to the dependent variable, in addition to the dependent variable. Like, for example, if we take a case of transformational leadership, it has the 4 I's. In case the 4 I's are also linear, they are the relationship between them exists, there is some relationship, then it means there is multicollinearity. There's linearity between the independent variables themselves. Remember, the linearity is supposed to be between independent and dependent. But then there are acceptable levels of multicollinearity. And we measure multicollinearity using VIF. And if it's between 1 and 10, remember these are results you are getting from the SPSS. If it's 1 to 10, then there is no multicollinearity. If it is more than 10, there is possibility of having multicollinearity. If it's more than 100, then automatically there is multicollinearity, and we need to do something so that the data is fit for influential statistics analysis. Linearity is simply linear relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. Okay. I don't know whether that is quite enjoyable. I think this is what students love most. Once you've understood it, you really love it. When you don't understand, you wonder, what is this in Greek? As we wind up ethical considerations, here you just need to assure us that you will, the entire research process, you will uphold to ethics, the ethical expectation. Like, you will not force or coerce participants to respond. You will not, or rather, you will allow them to withdraw at any point. All those ethical requirements. But then there are some steps that you also do, like you need to get a certificate from the university. After you've proved to the university that you will uphold to the ethical expectation, and then now you can go to NACOSTI. NACOSTI is the body that gives the final document or certificate that you use to go to the field to collect data. So those are some of the concept forms that you need, or certificates you will need before you go to the field. And then a summary of the chapter, you just, as usual, you tell us what you have covered in that chapter. Okay? Otherwise, we have appendices where you put now things to do with the instruments, the questionnaires. We have things to do with the budget, where you show us the budget that you are looking at to confirm that this study is viable. If you are expecting to do a study where you need millions of money, unless you first show us your statement, then the study might not be viable. And then in the appendices, you also include those NACOSTI certificates, the PAC ethical review certificate, and so on, and Gantt chart, or rather time frame. The best is Gantt chart. It's one of the ones that I've been using for my studies, but you can use any other that shows the time schedule. That helps you to remain on track, so that if you are too slow, you can fast track. By the way, and I'm done, it's important that you be sure of when you want to complete the entire program. Be sure. I think that is without incitement. That is why maybe Bishop Paul changed university, because perhaps he knew when he wants to complete. And if what he needed to accomplish that by that time is not accorded here, and it can be accorded in another institution, though Park University is simply the best, you do what you feel will help you to accomplish or to finish within the time frame. Otherwise, you'll be laughed at, as the Bible says, that you started building a house, you never completed, and people laugh at you. So I advise that be sure of when you want to complete your study, and then you have that Gantt chart so that you can move faster when you feel like you are lagging behind. And if you feel like you're moving very fast, then you may slow down a little bit, like I had to do, because my supervisors advised that if you finish before 3 years, my friend, we might be in trouble. So I had to delay a little bit for 2 months so that I finished in 3 years and 2 months. Back to you, Dr. Munyao. Thank you so much, participants, for the opportunity to share what I felt was in my heart and my head. And Dr. Munyao can help us finish up in the remaining minutes.
Thank you so much, Daktari. I'm sure the seats are hot. If they are hot where I am, I'm sure the seats are hot. But let me say this before I open the floor. You know, I think students who might think we were born like this, speaking this language, authenticity, I don't know. No. I'm sure we were not speaking this language a few years ago, but we grew interest. We were ready to learn. Like, for example, honestly, why I love research, to me, is a miracle, something that I never imagined. And I remember when I did my physical defense, that time, I think, I don't know, was it 2009? I don't know, 2019. I did not sleep that night because I was totally confused. I honestly did not know where to go, which way to follow. And when I talked to my supervisors, they said, go and relax. Then we go take a week and relax. Then I was wondering, why are these guys telling me to relax? So what you are feeling is acceptable. I'm sure people are feeling something confused. Is this possible? No, it is possible. So I'm saying this just to encourage those who think, no, it is possible. So let me open the floor for us. And there are so many, by the way, you can refer. Today, anyway, you can refer. All these things we are talking about, they are in the library. You can go and look at authenticity, I don't know, reliability, how are they done, and all that. It's not a secret. Writing is not a secret. So let me open the floor. It's now almost 7:30. We have around 30 minutes. Yes. And now that people are so quiet, let me start with Anastasia, Benta, Caroline. Let's go. Okay, yes, Anastasia. Then we go to Benta. That is everybody has to say something.
Actually, I was going to say, hey, Dr. Munya, I want to know how you get that smile.
Which one?
In terms of making sure you started well, you had resilience, you developed even interest in research, like you're saying, it wasn't, you're wondering, and you're still so passionate about it. Now you're outside. That's the trick that I'm looking for.
Now, why I developed interest in research is when I got into this university on full-time basis and sat in defenses, I discovered that students are suffering, and they are suffering. So I saw a gap in that this is an area that students are struggling, and I can get into it and help students. You know, let us not go over those cheap things. You know, one of my supervisors said, Dr. Ongedi said, Africans, the funny part of us is that when you find your neighbor started a shop, then you open the same shop, you know, selling the same things. So I developed interest because I saw a need, and I said, why can I get interest in this? You know, And what I have, honestly, I've learned what I say here. I've learned by sitting and listening to defenses, people contributing. That is how by the way, how I learned what I'm passionate about. So, and the other day we were struggling, but here we are because we have interest. So that is how it is. I don't know, Anastasia, Benta and Caroline, please quickly. Benta, are you there? Okay.
Yes, I am. I am having a little trouble changing networks, and so sometimes I've missed out, and sometimes
Grace,
I've got
Grace
it.
will come to you. Let's hear from Benta.
Well, listening to the way this is going on, and listening to the way Dr. Kariuki talks about this methodology so easily, and Dr. Munyao, learning from you that listening to defenses has also helped you build what you currently are able to share with learners like ourselves, gives me some encouragement and hope that there is still ways and opportunities for me to also, or even to all of us, to also achieve what you all have done. It's really admirable what you're able to share with all of us, and particularly having gone through the morning with the rest of the staff, the rest of the team that is here, one cannot help but say, yeah, the seat is hot, of course. One cannot help but say, there is yet hope ahead here, that we'll be able to get to where we intend to go, and really the belief that since we've all started and we've come this far, with your help, that we will actually get to the end of this journey as well, and join the elite in terms of where you all are, because for me that is how I view your current knowledge. But I love the fact that you so freely share it, so willingly, and so emptying yourselves, really like having mentors and mentees. I've learned from you, and so for me, I'm extremely grateful and hopeful that even as we go through the next chapters, we'll be able to pick up, and it'll make our proposals a little easier to handle going forward. Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thank you.
I normally say, if I had someone to mentor me the way I do, honestly, to some of you, honestly, I think I would be an expert now. But that is not a story of another day. Now, the secret is, please, when you hear the background of the study, how should it be structured? You know, if you talk about the objectives, just understand how are they supposed to be structured. If you talk about the conceptual literature review, how should it be structured? You know, it's like this information must be structured this way to fit into this, you know. So let me hear from Caroline quickly, so that I'm not again teaching. Then we go to, I think Domitian has not spoke. Caroline?
Thank you so much, Dr. Munyao and Dr. Kariuki. I really appreciate the session we've just had on chapter 3. This is one chapter that I always dread because of the many aspects, calculations, and today it looks like it's a bit easy now to understand with the clarity that Dr. has taken us through. I truly appreciate and want to believe that it will be easier for us going forward. However, I still have a question regarding the methods on qualitative. If I decide to do qualitative method alone, would it pass the test of time for a PhD student? Or it is better, as I heard Dr. Kariuki say, that if it is a mixed method, it's better than if it was qualitative alone or quantitative alone. I would request for further explanation on superiority of those. Because one, I heard you say that if you do mixed method, it's like doing double work, and that is a little bit scary. However, still, we want quality papers. And I was just asking myself, what if I want a mixed method? Is it possible, Daktari, that if I have 4 objectives, I use 2 objectives to answer using qualitative methods and the other 2 using quantitative? Will it pass the test of a PhD paper? Thank you, Daktari.
Let me try to respond quickly. I think for a PhD, we are not accepting anything short of mixed method. I think I want to assure you, if you come with the quantitative at PhD level, you'll be told no. But for masters and others, we are accepting for somebody to go quality. But we are encouraging. Let's say we are encouraging PhD students to use mixed method studies. And I'm telling you from experience what I'm hearing. Now, let me hear from Grace. I think, Grace, something is burning. I think the seat has gotten hot. Grace.
Thank you, Dr. Munyao, and thank you, Dr. Kariuki. I just want to appreciate the fact that you thought of us and gave us this session. It really goes a long way in helping us understand and unpacking some areas that we, for a long time, we thought it's not for me. Maybe somebody else has to hold my hand in this. But the way you're unpacking it and assisting us, it really goes a long way. And also it meets some of the thoughts that we've had in our hearts. For example, when it comes to mixed methods, my question was almost what Caroline has just postulated, because I said I am really interested in plunging into these mixed methods, because from the past papers we have written, we've always been quantitative, just a questionnaire and working with going by the questionnaire. But this time I have a feeling that I really need to plunge into these mixed methods. And of course, what Dr. Kariuki said is the complication, but with the 2 of you on our side, even those complications, I have a feeling we will overcome, because the way you are taking us through, it is really possible. The other thing is, this is a level where we feel, or where I feel it is a level that must differentiate me. I mean, I feel at this level, I shouldn't remain the same. Something a metamorphosis must really take place in me. And when I graduate, and I believe and I pray that I will, it should really make me a finer person and somebody who can actually meet the needs of a society, a community, and the globe at large, as you teach us. So mine was really to say, can I understand more on these mixed methods? And what Dr. Munyao has just said, that at this level, it is highly recommended that we be doing a mixed method. So it gives me the courage to say, yeah, let me plunge more, and let me propel myself more into this. Otherwise, mine is to say thank you for your thoughtfulness and taking us through. Some of us, we are not so I mean, there is much we are learning, and we are not saying, oh, with the much we have on our shoulders, we will not learn. The much we have with our shoulders, we are willing to even learn and be better and be differentiated. So thank you very much. That is what was funny. And another thing is, I'm missing my classmates who are going through a thrill today. I know I would be in that class, but I missed to do the publications, but I know I will do it. But I know Domitiana, Terry, Anastasia, I know they were facing the hot seat today, and I'm saying, oh, I wish I was I was there to also feel the hot seat, but nonetheless, that is it. Thank you so much.
Now, before Evelyn, whose mic is on, let me say what we mean by mixed method. Like, for example, mixed method can even be seen in the questionnaire. You know, like for me, like, for example, if my objective is self-awareness, and for self-awareness, I ask several closed-ended questions. And at the end of it, I also ask open-ended questions, you know? So the way I will analyze the closed-ended questions that are quantitative is different from the way I analyze the open-ended questions, the interviews and all that. So please don't really feel that this method is another big animal out there. No. And we are heading there, by the way. We will be able to help you. I hope, Dr. you will make comments later sometime. Evelyn, something is burning?
Before Evelyn comes, let me make it at this point because it's a minor comment. And I'm happy you have interjected with that point, Dr. Let's demystify the issue of mixed methods. The truth is, if you are doing mixed methods, you'll have to do more than what a purely quantitative or a purely qualitative would do. That's a fact. But the other truth is, it's not like if you are to spend 10 hours in one and 10 hours in the other, you will now spend 20. No. It might be 13 or 14. So basically, we are saying you can. It's allowed. You can major on quantitative, but you have aspects that you can only interrogate using qualitative. Now, like what Dr. Munyao has given as an example, if you are majoring on questionnaire, but a little bit of open-ended questions at the end, we can clearly see that the major is quantitative, but qualitative is supporting the quantitative. So it will give you some more work, but it doesn't mean that it's doubling your work, so that we can demystify that. Only that, and this was my point, you will want to also not do a short day work on the qualitative because the major is quantitative. You want to do the best that you can. And how do you do the best that you can? I love books by Cresswell because there's one that really explains how do you do mixed method, and it even gives you the structure. Like when we talk of sequential, then you are starting with quantitative, you get the results, and now using those results, you can be able to see which areas do you want to do qualitative. The other option is, instead of doing sequential where you first start with the quantitative and then you use those results to do the qualitative, you can do both in the same questionnaire, what Dr. Munyao was saying. The closed-ended questions and one or two of qualitative. But when you're analyzing, remember you'll have to analyze them separate, as Dr. Munyao was. I hope we have demystified that. It doesn't make, but remember we said you also need to have the knowledge on mixed method if you want to go that direction. And is it difficult to get knowledge? No, that's why we are here. That's why the books are there. Yes, Paul. Now, Dr. Munyao was leading us on this, and I wanted to go to Evelyn first. So I don't know whether back to you.
Now, if somebody has got something that is burning, let him ask. Bishop.
Thank you, Dr. Kariuki and Dr. Munyao, for a good job well done. I think for me, I would fudge for a mixed method. But I think one area which maybe I would need help in is especially when in the quantitative, how to use the SPSS. That is an area I think is something that definitely I would need some help in.
Okay. No, thank you. I think by Bishop, you are kind of you are in the spirit. I think this week we were talking to Dr. Kariuki that we are ready to even do some basic data analysis, and it will help. You know, and I like the way our sister said. Is it Grace? I said you want to be different. I think that should be the spirit. Now, who is next? Evelyn, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to appreciate taking your time to taking us through this. At least you've opened some areas that I was being confused about. Yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth? No, sorry. Domitiana, have you talked, please?
Thank you, Dr. Munyao. Thank you, Dr. Kariuki. I must say that this is useful. As you keep saying that these things are in books. Yes, they're in books, but at times when you hear someone speak about them, it even gives you the motivation to look further into them. So appreciate it, since this is going to be very useful. It's like a refresher for the next phase that we are headed to, because we have to make certain decisions on this. And as you rightly put it, mixed method is mandatory for us. And I believe with this refresher, it will be very good in terms of looking at things keenly as I work on the next phase of my study, and just putting in more effort to work towards maturing as scholars. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Elizabeth. You have said everybody has to talk.
Okay, Dr. Munyao. Just to appreciate the knowledge I've gained today. And I can't be more specific. So for example, the table Dr. Kariuki shared on operationalization of variables. This is something I didn't do in one of the papers that we were presenting today, the independent study. I think it's great. And then the diagnostic tests, these are things we did in the quantitative course. And now the chicken have come roosting. So, you think you're just doing a course, but you will actually use this information. So much appreciated. On the mixed methods, this is something I have thought about, and it was part of my 711 research proposal. I've already indicated my interest to do explanatory sequential mixed methods. Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Munyao and Dr. Kariuki.
Thank you. Let's hear from Jane Waweru, then Ilea.
Good evening, Dr. Munyao. Good evening, Dr. Kariuki and my colleagues. I really appreciate these sessions that we are having. I hope you won't get tired of us, Dr. Kariuki and Dr. Munyao, as we keep on participating in these sessions. Every time we have a session, it builds on the previous one, and we keep on maturing as we go towards finishing our course. It's interesting to see that with the session today, that all the units that we've done in the coursework are actually coming back, as Elizabeth has said, to build on each other. And it's not in vain that the coursework is provided by Park University. It really comes in to help us. And also, secondly, I'm really encouraged by the passion that you have to help us as students move ahead with this course, and to help us make sure we graduate. Maybe we may have to think about issues around gender, but maybe that's for another reason why my brothers are not participating as much as we would like them to do. I think we are more ladies, far much more ladies than our brothers. And lastly, I think for me, Dr. Munyao, I'm really encouraged by your words that it's not easy, but it's not yet time to give up. And there will be no time for us to give up. We have to keep on pushing until we reach our goal that we've given ourselves. So I feel encouraged, and I thank you and my participants, my fellow colleagues as well. Asanteni.
Great. Let's hear from Len. We have 12 minutes to go. Then Shasha.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry, I came late. I think for me, it's been a journey of trying to get all the information I can, trying to demystify this research. I know Dr. Munyao, I've come to see you trying to break down this information, but I'm really happy that day by day, it's actually becoming much easier. And the fear is going, and you actually realize you can be able to do it. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate what you have done for us. Thank you.
Great. Shasha?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Munyao, and also Dr. Kariuki and all the participants. This session is so insightful, and I really appreciate the good work. Although, let me just make one comment concerning the issue of mixed methods, qualitative and quantitative. From what I've seen, most of the researchers in PAC have done their research using the quantitative or mixed method. So my concern is, does it mean that the qualitative approach is not as important as quantitative and mixed methods? Because that one also brings about the issue of academic, can I call it academic politics? Because it's like, if one zeroes in on qualitative, then he is more disadvantaged. But when one takes quantitative, then it is seen as it's more scholarly than qualitative. So I don't know whether that one should be looked at, because I think qualitative and quantitative are both good methods of research. And mixed method is really like doing two studies. So I don't know, what is your comment, Dr.
Dr. Kariuki, you can comment?
Two things to mention. One of it might be subjective, but let me just mention. When we talk of qualitative, if you are to do a fully qualitative study, people think that it's easier because quantitative has too much mathematics and those statistics. But I think when you are doing qualitative paper, I can't remember the code, if you did a good job, then you know it's not easy. It would take too much time to analyze. If you do like interviews, decoding, generating those themes, I'm telling you, it's just too much work that you might take even longer than the person who did a purely quantitative. So there's the time aspect also. If you're doing pure qualitative, the expectation of doing all the analysis and all that. But the other thing is, maybe Dr. Munyao, you can also interject on this. When you come to replication or generalizability of the study, generalizability, even like the sampling. You see, some of the methods you use in sampling in qualitative are like purposive sampling method, where you just say, because of the purpose of what I want to achieve, I will only pick on this one, and the other. Now, is that generalizable? So the question of generalizability also comes in when you are doing qualitative. But for quantitative, generalizability is usually taken care of by virtue of the kind of sampling that we do in quantitative study. All said and done, if a university is discrediting one method and perhaps campaigning more for the other, you might, for ease of your life, you might have to go the direction that they recommend. Not forgetting that your supervisors may also influence to some extent which way to go. Yes, you will negotiate and agree, but if they tell you, hey man, let's go this direction, you may want to discuss and see whether that is the best, and given the reasons they are suggesting. Because finally, remember, you have to work with if it's PhD, you have to work with both supervisors to the end. It's a journey that you are going together. So you must agree at every stage of the journey. That's what I wanted to add, Dr. Yeah.
It's okay. Yes, Bishop again.
Yes, concerning the issue of the methodology, which we've gone through today, I wanted to maybe do an addition even to fellow students. I think one of the things that has really helped me even as I carry out the methodology was, I don't know if you've heard of this research onion. The research onion, it has like 6 frameworks that basically guides the student to be able to carry out the methodology. You have like the philosophy. Within the philosophy, you can either choose the positivism, the realism, or the pragmatism, and so forth and so on. You have the approaches. Within the approaches, you either choose the deductive method or the inductive method. We have the strategies. Within the strategies, you can either choose a case study approach, a survey. We have what they call the choices, which we have belabored quite a bit today on issues of mixed method or maybe a multi-method or a mono method. We have the time horizon, which you look at issues of cross-sectional or longitudinal, and then the techniques and procedures, which looks at data collection and data analysis. So I will just encourage my fellow classmates, just Google Research Onion. It will give you a very good framework, which is basically methodological, that will help you carry out the methodology section. I felt I needed to just share that with her.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, thank you so much. And again, there is something my brother said. I don't think at Park University, whether we value qualitative over quantitative. I am never seen that. The reason why many people lean towards quantitative as opposed to qualitative, I don't know. So that's another discussion. I think it is a personal level. Either quantitative is more easier to do than qualitative. So we don't really value one over the other one. That is not there, I want to assure you. It's only that few people, it's just like many people go to transformational leadership. Very few people, I've not seen a study on ethical leadership. And why? I don't know. Then let's hear from Rachel, then Lengu very quickly as we finish, please. Rachel. Okay, let's hear from Lengu. Oh.
I'm doing Rachel here. Thank you so much, Dr. for guiding us through. I'm doing this as my first year in masters, and I'm happy to have this information pre. It may sound like Greek, but I'm happy when I get the information. Dr. Kariuki, I would have appreciated just to see maybe a table that helps me get to understand the variable and the method, research method, and the tests, what do you call them? The way now I can be able to integrate them to the system that we are doing the testing, SSPM, the system that you're referring to, just for the conceptual of understanding. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. No information on research method, my first year.
I think Dr. will respond to that. Let's hear from Terry. I think Terry, Lengu, are you there? Terry, as we wait for Lengu. Wow. Okay. I think we...
Thank you, Dr. Mnyao and Dr. Kariuki. I know you are very busy, but having taken your time and formed this class, I'm really, really very grateful. What touched me most this afternoon or this evening is that if we take a wrong research design, you can get wrong data, which I find very, very, very critical. And I'm very grateful for that, because it means we have to be very careful in what we are going to do. And I've gained a lot in this class today, and most of the things I had been reading them, but I couldn't understand them properly. But after explaining, I'm much, much better. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. Terry, you are there? And the assurance is that we are available. That's the assurance. Terry, I think Terry could be. So ladies and gentlemen, as I asked Dr. Kariuki to make his final comments, I want to assure you that we are there for you. And our aim is to raise more scholars so that they can help others, because research is something that is disturbing people. I've been in this university for 5 years. I don't really understand why people still struggle with the research. I've tried to ask questions. I don't get answers. So we are here to help more scholars to come up and all that. Next week, I will be taking you through chapter 4. How now between this chapter and the chapter 4, you must have collected data, analyzed. Then in chapter 4, we'll be presenting the results. So I'll be linking chapter 3 and the chapter 4 and see how do we present the results, you know, as we come towards the end of chapter 5, where we now make a recommendation. So I want to assure you it should be very interesting. How do the results, how do we present the results and all that, based on what and all that. So Dr. Kariuki, any comment as I'm just giving them an overview of our expectation next week. Probably you say something and probably you pray for us. It's now 8:01 and we promise to keep time.
Yeah, I think we appreciate your comments. Remember, from Proverbs, iron sharpens iron. Like what one of us has asked, I don't know, it's Terry or someone, about a table sort of trying to link this philosophy with what method it matches, research design and all that. I think Bishop Paul, that is what he's trying to address using the research onion. May I request, Bishop, if perhaps you could share that in the first few minutes of next session. You can get just that methodology or that framework before we start chapter 4. Perhaps it might help, or else you can even share with the group I formed. I think it's only Dr. Munya who is not in that group for some reason. We want to keep the two things separate, this masterclass and the other work that he's doing for PAC. These are totally different things. We don't want him to get confused. Am I dealing with the PAC University or the masterclass in the group? So Bishop Paul, if that is acceptable?
Yes. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. By the way, no one, never be cheated. No one is a custodian of knowledge. Actually, when you think you've learned everything, then that is the beginning of your fall. We are all here to learn. Some of the things that we are discussing, they might sound complex, and somebody comes with an easier way of looking at the same, and that's what we want. Basically, that is it. I think we can put a comma there. And because I know if we shared the recording with you, you won't take it to be outside the this masterclass. We'll finalize with Dr. Munyao and we see whether we can share with us the recording for today. We are not promising for every other session because it's not the custom for us to share. We want people to come and learn, to attend the class, not to use shortcuts. So, Dr. Munyao, do I go ahead and pray, or do we can give
Yes.
one of us a chance so that it's more?
Please do.
Yeah,
please do.
Pastor Shasha, if your network is okay.
Oh, yes, my network is okay, Daktari.
Go on.
Are you requesting for
pray.
For, prayers to close the session?
Yes.
Okay, prayer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then thank you very much. Let's bow down for our word of prayer. Let's all pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for being with us since we started this session. Thank you for the interactive session we have had. I pray that you bless Dr. Munyao and Dr. Kariuki for taking much time even to educate us on how to do research. We know that this is a difficult academic journey, but by your grace, we are going to go to the finishing line. Thank you because of every participant. How I pray that you're going to bless all of us, bless our families, and help us in this journey. Also meet us in our points of need. We thank you, Lord, and we glorify your name. When we meet again on Friday, we shall give you all the thanks. We pray this believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. God bless you all. See you on Friday next week.
Amen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Amen.
Thank you.